Marcus Chen wiped his greasy hands on his coveralls and squinted at the massive alien vessel hovering above Terminus Station. The ship looked like someone had taken a cathedral and stretched it through space. All flowing curves and crystalline panels that caught the light of 3 different suns. Beautiful, sure. But Marcus had learned not to trust pretty spaceships. The prettier they were, the more likely they were to break down in ways that would give you nightmares. "Another royal pain in the rear," muttered his supervisor, Chief Garrett, as he handed Marcus the work tablet. "Empress Zephyra of the Celestial Dominion. Her Majesty's ship is making strange noises, and apparently none of her fancy alien engineers can figure out what's wrong." Marcus scrolled through the service request, noting the ship's specifications. The vessel was called the Times Starweaver Asterisk, and according to the technical readout, it was powered by something called a quantum harmony matrix that sounded like the kind of thing that would explode if you looked at it wrong. The complaint was simple enough, though. Unusual vibrations during faster-than-light travel, accompanied by what the crew described as discordant harmonics. "Why are they calling us?" Marcus asked. "I mean, no offense to human engineering, but their tech is probably 1,000 years ahead of anything we've built," Chief Garrett snorted. "Because 3 different Celestial Dominion engineering teams have looked at it, plus a group of those big-brained archivists from the Kepler Collective, and none of them can find the problem. Desperate times call for desperate measures, I guess. They're willing to let the new guys take a look." Marcus nodded. Humans had only joined the Galactic Council 15 years ago, and they were still very much the junior partners in most things. While other species had been traveling between stars for millennia, humans had barely figured out how to leave their solar system when the first contact teams arrived. Most aliens saw them as enthusiastic but primitive, useful mainly for their willingness to take on dangerous jobs that more advanced species considered beneath them. The docking procedures took almost an hour. The Times, Starweaver Times, was so large that Terminus Station's main bay couldn't accommodate it, so Marcus had to take a shuttle over to the ship itself. As he approached, he could see the problem wasn't going to be simple. The hull was vibrating in a pattern that looked almost organic, like the ship was breathing. Whatever was causing the harmonics, it was affecting the entire structure. The airlock opened to reveal 2 Celestials waiting for him. They were tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shift color based on their mood, and elaborate head crests that Marcus had learned indicated social rank. Both of them were currently showing the deep blue hues that meant skepticism mixed with mild annoyance. "You are the human mechanic?" asked the taller one, whose crest identified him as some kind of senior officer. "I am Navigation Prime Cathara. This is Engineering Prime Nexus. We were told to expect you. Thanks for watching. We having Prime Nexus. We prinin having conching. We were told to expect you. We were told to do." The way he said it made it clear that having a human mechanic aboard was not his idea. Marcus had gotten used to that tone over the years. "Marcus Chen, Certified Ship Systems Specialist. I understand you're having some trouble with harmonics during FTL travel." Engineering Prime Nexus's skin shifted to a slightly more purple shade. "The harmony matrix is experiencing resonance disruption. Our best theorists believe it may be a quantum field fluctuation caused by gravitational wave interference from the binary pulsar system we passed through last week." Marcus nodded politely, though half of that had sounded like technobabble to his human ears. "Mind if I take a look at the engine room?" Sometimes the simplest approach works best. The 2 Celestials exchanged glances, their skin colors shifting through what Marcus had learned were the visual equivalent of whispered conversations. Finally, Cathara gestured for him to follow. "Very well. But I should warn you. This is not a simple chemical propulsion system like your species uses. The quantum harmony matrix operates on principles that require years of study to truly understand." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Marcus had to admit he was impressed. Everything was smooth and flowing, like the passages had been grown rather than built. Soft light emanated from the walls themselves, and the air carried a faint musical quality that was probably part of whatever system was malfunctioning. They passed other crew members, all Celestials, who paused in their activities to stare at the human visitor. Marcus caught fragments of their conversations, translated by his universal comm device. Words like primitive and crude featured prominently, along with what he assumed were polite expressions of doubt about human capabilities. The engine room, when they finally reached it, was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Instead of the mechanical chaos of human engineering, the space was dominated by a massive crystalline structure that hummed with contained energy. Patterns of light moved through its faceted surface in complex spirals, and the whole assembly was suspended in the center of the chamber by what looked like controlled gravity fields. The quantum harmony matrix, announced Engineering Prime Nexus with obvious pride. It converts exotic matter into space-time distortion, allowing us to travel faster than light, while maintaining perfect structural integrity. The resonance frequencies are calculated by our ship's consciousness to ensure optimal efficiency. Marcus walked around the crystal, noting the way it pulsed in rhythm with the vibrations he'd observed from outside. The pattern was definitely wrong. He could feel it in his bones, even if he couldn't understand the physics involved. How long has this been happening? The harmonics began approximately 6 standard days ago, Nexus replied. Initially, they were so subtle that only our most sensitive instruments could detect them. However, the amplitude has been increasing steadily. Our projections indicate that within another 3 days, the resonance will reach levels that could damage the matrix permanently. And your engineering teams haven't found anything? Kithara's skin shifted to a more orange hue, indicating frustration. Every diagnostic we have run indicates that the matrix is functioning within normal parameters. The quantum field alignment is perfect. The exotic matter flow is optimal. And the consciousness interface reports no anomalies. By every measure we understand, nothing is wrong. Marcus nodded, pulling out his tools. They looked primitive compared to the sophisticated instruments the Celestials carried. Just a basic sensor package, a sonic screwdriver, and a few other pieces of equipment that would have been familiar to mechanics from centuries past. Mind if I run some tests of my own? The two aliens stepped back, their expressions suggesting they thought this was a waste of time but were willing to humor him. Marcus started with the basics, running his sensors over the crystal matrix and the surrounding support structures. The readings were mostly gibberish to him. His equipment wasn't designed to analyze exotic matter. But he was looking for something simpler. "Tell me about the ship's consciousness," he said as he worked. "How does that interface with the matrix?" "The consciousness is a bio-neural network that manages all ship functions," Nexus explained. "It monitors the quantum fields, adjusts the harmonic frequencies, and ensures optimal performance. It is, essentially, the ship's brain. And it hasn't reported any problems? None whatsoever. In fact, it insists that all systems are functioning perfectly." Marcus paused in his scanning, a thought beginning to form. He'd dealt with ship AIs before, though nothing as sophisticated as what the Celestials described. But he'd learned that sometimes the problem with smart systems was that they were too smart for their own good. Where is this consciousness housed? Where is this consciousness? "The bioneural core is located 3 levels below us," Kithara replied. "But I assure you, it has been thoroughly examined. The consciousness is in perfect health." "Number 6. Humor me," Marcus said, slinging his tool bag over his shoulder. "I'd like to take a look." The journey to the bioneural core took them through more of the ship's flowing corridors, past laboratories and quarters designed for beings who clearly valued beauty as much as function. Marcus noticed that the musical quality of the air was stronger here, and the vibrations he'd been feeling seemed to emanate from somewhere nearby. The core chamber was smaller than the engine room but even more impressive. Instead of crystal, this space was dominated by what looked like an enormous brain made of living light. Tendrils of energy connected it to conduits throughout the ship, and patterns of thought moved across its surface like slow lightning. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Nexus said, his skin showing genuine pride. "The consciousness took 3 centuries to grow to maturity. It possesses intelligence far beyond any individual celestial, with perfect recall and computational abilities that border on precognitive." Marcus approached the bioneural core carefully, his sensors extended. The readings were even stranger here, showing energy patterns that his equipment couldn't properly categorize. But as he got closer, he began to notice something the sophisticated alien instruments had apparently missed. "Has anyone checked the physical mounting systems recently?" he asked. Both Celestials looked at him with confusion. "The mounting systems?" Kithara asked. "Yeah, the actual hardware that holds this thing in place." Marcus knelt down beside one of the support pedestals, running his scanner along its base. When was the last time someone looked at the nuts and bolts, so to speak? Engineering Prime Nexus's skin shifted to a pale yellow that Marcus had learned indicated bewilderment. "The quantum stabilizers maintain perfect positioning. There are no nuts and bolts." But Marcus had found what he was looking for. His scanner was showing microscopic variations in the support structure. Tiny stress fractures that were allowing the entire assembly to flex by fractions of a millimeter. In a system this sensitive, even that tiny amount of movement would be enough to throw everything off. "Found your problem," he announced, standing up and dusting off his knees. "Your consciousness isn't reporting any issues because technically, there aren't any. The bioneural core is working perfectly. But the supports holding it in place have developed microfractures. Probably from normal stress over time. Every time the ship changes course or adjusts velocity, the core shifts just a little bit. That's what's causing your harmonic disruption." The two Celestials stared at him in silence for a long moment. Then they began running their own scans, their sophisticated instruments confirming what Marcus's simple sensors had detected. The fractures were there, invisible to their quantum field analyzers but obvious once someone thought to look for basic structural failure. "This is impossible," Nexus whispered, his skin cycling through colors Marcus didn't recognize. "Our diagnostics should have detected this immediately. Your diagnostics were looking for exotic problems," Marcus replied. "Sometimes the answer is more basic than that. When you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras." It took them a moment to process the human idiom. But when they did, both aliens looked embarrassed. They had been so focused on complex quantum mechanics that they had completely overlooked simple mechanical engineering. "Can this be repaired?" Kithara asked. Marcus examined the fractures more closely, noting their pattern and extent. "Yeah, but it's going to require some careful work. The supports will need to be reinforced without disrupting the quantum field alignments, and we'll need to do it while the consciousness is still active, since shutting it down could cause other problems. Our repair protocols would require dry dock facilities and several weeks of work," Nexus admitted. "Do you have a faster solution?" Marcus grinned, the expression that had gotten him out of more tight spots than he could count. "Give me 6 hours and some basic fabrication materials." "I've got an idea." As he began pulling tools from his bag, he noticed other crew members gathering at the chamber's entrance. Word had apparently spread that the primitive human had found something their advanced diagnostics had missed. The colors of their skin showed a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and what might have been grudging respect. "One thing, though," Marcus said as he prepared to start work. "I'm going to need everyone to stay clear of the core chamber while I'm working. This is delicate work, and I can't afford any distractions." "Of course," Kithara agreed. "We will monitor from the observation deck." But as Marcus began setting up his equipment, he noticed something else in his readings. The microfractures weren't random. They showed a specific pattern that suggested the damage was progressing faster than normal wear and tear would explain. Someone or something had been putting stress on the support systems. And if his suspicions were correct, the situation was more dangerous than anyone realized. He was going to need to work fast, and he was going to need to be very, very careful about who he trusted. The real test was just beginning. Marcus worked quickly, his hands moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who had spent years fixing things that weren't supposed to be fixable. The bioneural core pulsed above him, its patterns of living light casting strange shadows across the chamber as he welded microscopic reinforcements into place. But the more he studied the fracture patterns, the more worried he became. The damage wasn't random at all. It showed clear signs of sabotage. Someone had introduced harmonic frequencies designed to stress the support structure at its weakest points. Whoever had done this knew exactly how celestial bioneural cores worked, and they had been very clever about it. "Human Chen," came a voice from the observation deck. Marcus looked up to see Engineering Prime Nexus, his skin showing the deep green hues of concern. Our instruments are detecting unusual quantum fluctuations. Are you certain your repairs are safe? The fluctuations aren't from my work, Marcus replied, not looking up from his welding. They're from whoever has been messing with your support systems. This wasn't an accident, Prime Nexus. Someone wanted your ship to break down. A ripple of shocked colors passed through the assembled Celestials on the observation deck. Marcus could hear fragments of rapid conversation, the universal translators working overtime to convert what sounded like very agitated discussions about security protocols and threat assessments. Navigation Prime Cathara's voice cut through the chatter. That is impossible. No one has had unsupervised access to the core chamber, except certified crew members, all of whom have undergone extensive loyalty verification. Maybe, Marcus said, finishing the last weld on the primary support. But loyalty verification doesn't account for coercion, blackmail, or good old-fashioned stupidity. Someone with access to this chamber has been introducing specific frequency patterns designed to create resonance failure. He stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead, and pulled out his scanner again. The reinforcements were holding, and the immediate danger had passed. But his readings were showing something else now, energy patterns that didn't match anything in the ship's normal operations. Prime Nexus, can you run a full crew location scan? I want to know where everyone on this ship is right now. The engineering Prime's skin shifted through several color combinations that Marcus recognized as confusion mixed with growing alarm. Processing. Scan complete. All crew members are accounted for and in their designated areas. All crew members? Marcus asked. His attention focused on his scanner readings. Because I'm detecting life signs that don't match celestial biopatterns. Someone else is on this ship. Before anyone could respond, the ship's consciousness spoke for the first time since Marcus had arrived. Its voice was musical and harmonious, but underneath the beauty was an unmistakable note of distress. Warning. Unauthorized access detected in auxiliary systems. Unknown entities have bypassed security protocols in sections 7 through 12. Defensive systems are compromised. The lights in the chamber flickered, and Marcus felt a new vibration begin to build in the ship's hull. This one was different from the harmonic resonance he had just fixed. Sharper, more aggressive, like the sound of metal being torn apart. That's not good, Marcus muttered, checking his readings again. Whatever they're doing, it's affecting the quantum matrix directly now. The bioneural core is trying to compensate, but if they keep this up, the ship's consciousness spoke again. Its voice now clearly strained. Hull integrity at 93% and falling. Quantum matrix stability decreasing. Estimate complete system failure in 17 minutes. Navigation Prime, Kithara's skin had gone completely white, a color Marcus had never seen before. Empress Zephyra must be informed immediately. Security teams, to battle stations. But Marcus was already moving, grabbing his tools and heading for the chamber exit. No time for security teams. If I'm right about what they're doing, you've got maybe 10 minutes before this ship tears itself apart from the inside. Where are sections 7 through 12? Lower engineering levels, Nexus replied, his skin cycling rapidly through different hues. But human. You cannot possibly understand the systems they are attacking. These are quantum field manipulators that require years of study to understand. Yeah, you mentioned that, Marcus interrupted, running toward the nearest transport tube. But here's the thing about sabotage. It usually follows pretty simple principles. Find the most critical systems and break them in ways that look like accidents. The transport tube carried him down through the ship's levels at dizzying speed. As he descended, Marcus could hear the groaning of the hull as the unauthorized modifications continued to tear at the ship's structural integrity. Whatever the saboteurs were doing, they were working fast. Level 7 was in chaos when he arrived. Emergency lights bathed everything in a pulsing red glow, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with barely contained energy. Marcus followed his scanner readings toward the source of the disturbance, his path leading him deeper into the ship's mechanical systems. He found them in auxiliary engineering. 3 figures in environmental suits working frantically at what looked like a jury-rigged control interface. They weren't celestials. Their movements were too angular, too precise, Marcus recognized the body language from security briefings. These were hegemony operatives, members of a militaristic empire that had been fighting a cold war with the Celestial Dominion for decades. They hadn't noticed him yet, focused as they were on their sabotage. Marcus could see what they were doing now, introducing cascade failures into the quantum field generators that would make the ship's destruction look like an accident. The kind of accident that would give the hegemony an excuse to claim the Celestials couldn't maintain their own technology safely. The problem was, there were 3 of them, and 1 of him, and they were armed with military-grade equipment, while he had a sonic screwdriver and some spare welding supplies. Time for some creative thinking. Marcus pulled out his communicator and set it to emergency broadcast. This is Mechanic Chen to all stations. Security alert in Auxiliary Engineering, Section 7. 3 hostile operatives detected. Repeat. Hostile operatives in Auxiliary Engineering. The saboteurs spun around at the sound of his voice, their weapons immediately tracking toward his position. Marcus dove behind a bank of quantum field generators as energy bolts sparked off the walls around him. Human pest, one of them growled, his voice filtered through a translator. You should have stayed in your repair bay. Yeah, well, I never was good at taking advice, Marcus replied, frantically working at the access panel beside him. The quantum generators were complex, sure, but they still ran on the same basic principles as any other power system. And if there was one thing humans had gotten good at over the years, it was making things explode at exactly the right moment. More energy bolts sparked around his hiding place as Marcus rerouted power flows and adjusted field harmonics. He wasn't trying to fix anything this time. He was trying to create a very specific kind of controlled failure. Warning, came the ship's consciousness over the intercom. Quantum field instability detected in Auxiliary Engineering. Hull integrity at 87%. All personnel evacuate affected areas immediately. Quote. 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 Did you hear that? Marcus called out to the saboteurs. Even the ship's brain thinks this is a bad place to be right now. Might want to consider a career change. Silence. The lead operative moved closer, his weapon charging for a killing shot. Your interference ends now. That was when Marcus triggered the cascade he had been building. The quantum generator next to him didn't explode. That would have been too dangerous in the confined space. Instead, it released all of its stored energy in a brilliant flash of coherent light that turned the entire chamber into a temporary star. The saboteurs' environmental suits had automatic light filters, but they were designed for gradual adjustment, not instantaneous overload. All 3 operatives were temporarily blinded, stumbling and firing wildly as they tried to reorient themselves. Marcus used the confusion to move, scrambling toward the saboteurs' jury-rigged control interface. If he could shut down their modifications before the cascade failures reached critical mass, he might be able to save the ship. But as he reached the controls, he realized the situation was even worse than he had thought. The saboteurs hadn't just been introducing random failures. They had been carefully orchestrating a chain reaction that would overload the ship's quantum matrix and destroy it from within. And they were less than 2 minutes away from the point of no return. Computer, Marcus said, his hands flying over the alien controls. This is Emergency Authorization Chen 77. I need to speak directly to Empress Zephyra. I'm Stan. Authorization recognized, the ship's consciousness replied. Connecting to Imperial quarters. The holographic image of Empress Zephyra materialized above the control panel. She was tall and elegant even by celestial standards, her skin showing the deep purple hues of supreme authority. But Marcus could see the worry in her eyes. Mechanic Chen, she said, her voice maintaining royal composure despite the crisis. Navigation Prime. Kithara has informed me of the situation. Can the ship be saved? Maybe, Marcus replied, still working at the controls. But I need you to order everyone off the ship. Everyone. Right now. That is impossible. The Times Starweaver Times carries over 3,000 crew members. Evacuation would take hours. And our escort vessels lack the capacity to. Your Majesty, Marcus interrupted, something he was pretty sure wasn't supposed to happen. With respect, this isn't a negotiation. In about 90 seconds, I'm going to try something that will either save your ship or turn it into the largest firework display in galactic history. Either way, you don't want anyone aboard when it happens. The Empress's skin shifted through colors that Marcus's translator couldn't interpret, but her tone remained steady. What exactly are you planning to do? Marcus paused in his work for just a moment, looking directly at the holographic monarch. I'm going to overload every quantum generator on this ship simultaneously. The energy release should disrupt the cascade failure and reset the matrix to baseline parameters. But if I'm wrong, if you are wrong, the ship will be destroyed anyway, the Empress finished. And if you are right? If I'm right, your ship will be fine. But the energy release will probably fry every electronic system within a 10-kilometer radius, including life support. Hence the evacuation order. The saboteurs were starting to recover from the light flash, their vision clearing as they moved toward Marcus's position. He could hear the whine of charging weapons, but he was too focused on the control interface to worry about them now. Very well, Empress Zephyra said. Emergency evacuation protocols are now in effect. All personnel to escape pods immediately. Mechanic Chen, thank you. The hologram disappeared, and Marcus could hear the ship-wide evacuation alarms beginning to sound. He had maybe 60 seconds before the saboteurs reached him, and maybe 40 before the cascade failure reached critical mass. Time to find out if human stubbornness really could overcome alien technology. Hey! He shouted to the saboteurs as they closed in on his position. You might want to get to those escape pods too. This is about to get really interesting. The lead operative raised his weapon, his vision finally clear enough to aim properly. You will not interfere with hegemony operations, human. Marcus looked up from the controls, grinned, and said the words that would echo through diplomatic channels for years to come. Watch me. Then he slammed his hand down on the emergency override, and the Time Starweaver Times became the brightest object in the star system. The first thing Marcus noticed when he regained consciousness was that he was still alive, which he took as a good sign. The second thing he noticed was that everything around him was very, very quiet. The constant hum of the ship's systems had been replaced by an almost complete silence, broken only by the sound of his own breathing and the faint crackle of cooling electronics. He was lying on the deck of auxiliary engineering, his body aching from the energy discharge that had knocked him unconscious. The three hegemony saboteurs were sprawled nearby, their environmental suits blackened but their chests still rising and falling. The jerry-rigged control interface they had been using was nothing more than melted slag. Well, Marcus muttered to himself as he struggled to his feet, that could have gone worse. His communicator was dead, fried along with most of the ship's electronics, but the emergency lighting was starting to flicker back to life. That meant the quantum matrix had survived his improvised reset, and the ship's consciousness was beginning to restore basic systems. He had actually pulled it off. The journey back to the main levels took longer than expected, with most of the transport tubes offline and emergency bulkheads sealed to contain any potential atmosphere leaks. But as Marcus climbed through maintenance passages and emergency ladders, he could hear the distant sounds of systems coming back online. The Times, Starweaver Times, was damaged but alive. He finally made it to the bridge level just as the first evacuation shuttles were beginning to return. Through the observation windows, he could see dozens of small craft approaching the ship, their running lights like fireflies in the darkness of space. The evacuation had worked. Over 3,000 crew members had made it off the ship in less than an hour, a testament to celestial efficiency when properly motivated. The bridge doors opened with a grinding sound, their mechanisms still struggling to function after the electromagnetic pulse Marcus had unleashed. Inside, he found a handful of crew members working frantically to restore command functions, their skin colors showing the deep blues and purples of concentrated effort. Mechanic Chen. Navigation Prime. Cathara looked up from a control panel that was sparking intermittently. You are alive. How is this possible? The energy discharge should have been fatal to any organic being within the affected area. Marcus shrugged, pulling out his scanner to check the local radiation levels. Human nervous systems are apparently more resistant to quantum field disruption than anyone expected. Lucky me. How's the ship? Functional but severely damaged. Engineering Prime Nexus replied, his skin showing relief mixed with exhaustion. The quantum matrix is stable, but most of our advanced systems will require extensive repair. The bioneural consciousness is in a state of semi-dormancy while it recovers from the energy surge. And the saboteurs? Security teams have taken them into custody, Cathara said. They are unconscious, but alive, which is more than they deserved. The evidence they left behind confirms that this was a hegemony operation, designed to make our ship's destruction appear accidental. The bridge doors opened again, and Marcus turned to see Empress Zephyra herself entering the chamber. She moved with fluid grace, despite the emergency conditions. Her skin, showing the deep purple of royal authority, tinged with something that might have been gratitude. The crew immediately began to show signs of deference, their skin colors shifting to acknowledge her presence. "Mechanic Chen," the Empress said, approaching him directly, "I understand that we owe you a considerable debt. Not only did you save my ship, but you prevented what could have been a devastating political incident between our peoples and the hegemony." Marcus felt awkward under the attention of so many alien dignitaries. "Just doing my job, Your Majesty. Though I have to admit, this was a bit outside normal ship maintenance protocols." The Empress studied him with eyes that seemed to contain depths Marcus couldn't fathom. "Navigation Prime, Cathara has informed me of how you identified the original problem, a failure of basic structural supports that our most advanced diagnostics missed completely. He also tells me you suspected sabotage before our security systems detected any intrusion." "Sometimes the old ways work best," Marcus replied. "Your people have amazing technology, but you've gotten so used to thinking in complex terms that you miss simple solutions. The saboteurs were counting on that. They knew you'd look for exotic causes and miss the basic mechanical failures." "Indeed," the Empress gestured to the damaged control panels around them. "It seems there is much my people can learn from human approaches to problem solving. Tell me, how did you know that overloading the quantum generators would reset the matrix rather than destroy it?" Marcus hesitated. The truth was, he hadn't known for certain. It had been an educated guess, based on his understanding of feedback loops and resonance patterns. But explaining that he had risked everyone's lives on a hunch probably wasn't the most diplomatic approach. "Basic engineering principles," he said finally. "When a system is being torn apart by conflicting forces, sometimes the best solution is to give it so much energy that it breaks free of the destructive pattern entirely, like using a controlled explosion to stop an avalanche." Engineering Prime Nexus's skin shifted to colors that Marcus's translator identified as profound respect mixed with bewilderment. "You compared our quantum matrix to an avalanche?" "Well, not exactly, but the principle is the same. Any system under stress will find its own equilibrium if you give it enough energy to overcome the forces trying to tear it apart. The trick is making sure you survive the process." The Empress nodded slowly, as if filing this information away for future reference. "There is wisdom in simplicity. It seems, perhaps my engineers have become too accustomed to elegant solutions to recognize effective ones." The conversation was interrupted by the ship's consciousness, its voice weaker than before but still functional. "Your Majesty, incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. Priority 1 diplomatic channel. Put it through," the Empress commanded. The air above the central control panel shimmered, and the holographic image of Chancellor Vorthak of the Galactic Council appeared. The Chancellor was a member of the ancient Archon species, tall and imposing with features that seemed carved from living stone. His expression was grave. "Empress Zephyra," the Chancellor began, "we have received reports of a significant energy discharge from your vessel, followed by claims from the hegemony that you have been testing illegal weapons in neutral space. They are demanding an immediate investigation and threatening economic sanctions." The Empress's skin shifted to the deep red hues of righteous anger. "The hegemony makes false accusations to cover their own crimes, Chancellor. They planted saboteurs aboard my vessel in an attempt to destroy it and blame the incident on technological failure. These are serious allegations," Chancellor Vorthak replied. "Do you have proof of these claims?" "I have something better than proof," the Empress said, gesturing toward Marcus. "I have a witness whose integrity cannot be questioned. A human mechanic who not only exposed the sabotage, but risked his life to prevent it." The Chancellor's ancient eyes focused on Marcus, studying him with an intensity that was distinctly uncomfortable. A human? How did a human mechanic become involved in this situation? Marcus stepped forward, acutely aware that his oil-stained coveralls and general state of dishevelment probably didn't make the best impression on galactic leadership. Your Honor, I was called in to investigate harmonic resonance issues with the ship's quantum matrix. What I found was evidence of deliberate sabotage designed to cause catastrophic failure. And you can substantiate these claims? I can provide you with sensor logs showing the specific frequency patterns introduced to weaken the support structures, recordings of the saboteurs' activities, and physical evidence of their modifications to ship systems. Plus, we have the 3 operatives in custody. Chancellor Vorthak's expression shifted slightly, showing what might have been approval. Very well. I will dispatch a council investigation team immediately. Until they arrive, the hegemony's accusations will be considered pending further evidence. The holographic image disappeared, leaving the bridge in relative quiet. The Empress turned back to Marcus, her skin now showing deep blue thoughtfulness. Once again, we are in your debt, she said. Not only have you saved my ship and crew, but you may have prevented a diplomatic crisis that could have led to open war. Marcus felt heat rising in his cheeks. I really was just doing my job, Your Majesty. Any competent mechanic would have spotted the same problems. Would they? The Empress asked. Engineering Prime Nexus. How many specialists examined this ship before Mechanic Chen arrived? 17 different teams, Your Majesty, including experts from 3 different species and our most advanced diagnostic systems, and none of them identified the problem that this human found within hours of coming aboard. The Empress studied Marcus again. There is something unique about human thinking, isn't there? Something that allows you to see patterns that escape even our most sophisticated minds. Navigation Prime Kithara spoke up, his skin showing colors of reluctant admission. Your Majesty, if I may. The human's approach was completely unorthodox. Rather than analyzing quantum field harmonics or exotic matter flows, he examined physical support structures with primitive tools. It was crude by our standards, and effective by any standard, the Empress replied. Perhaps we have become too sophisticated for our own good, too reliant on elegant solutions when practical ones would serve better. Marcus found himself thinking about his grandfather, who had taught him to work on old mechanical systems back on Earth. The old man had always said that the fanciest diagnostic equipment in the world couldn't replace looking at a problem with your own eyes and thinking about it with common sense. It seemed that lesson applied even to quantum-powered starships. Your Majesty, Marcus said carefully, if I may make a suggestion? Your technology is incredible, but maybe your people could benefit from cross-training with human engineers. Not to replace your methods, but to add different perspectives. Sometimes an outside viewpoint can spot things that experts miss. The Empress was quiet for a long moment, her skin cycling through colors that Marcus's translator couldn't identify. Finally, she spoke. Mechanic Chen, how would you feel about a permanent position as a consultant to the Imperial Engineering Corps? Your pay would, of course, reflect the value of your unique perspective. Marcus blinked in surprise. You want me to work for the Celestial Dominion? I want you to help us learn new ways of thinking about old problems. Today you saved my ship by ignoring conventional wisdom and trusting your instincts. Tomorrow, you might help us solve challenges we don't even know we face yet. Engineering Prime Nexus's skin showed colors of nervous excitement. Your Majesty, if the human joins our engineering teams, we could potentially revolutionize our approach to system diagnostics. Imagine combining his practical methodology with our technological capabilities. That's exactly what I'm imagining, the Empress replied. Mechanic Chen, what do you say? What do you say? Marcus looked around the bridge, taking in the faces of the alien crew members who were watching him with expressions ranging from curiosity to respect. 6 months ago, humans had been barely tolerated junior partners in the galactic community. Now he was being offered a position that would put him at the heart of one of the most advanced civilizations in known space. I'll need to discuss this with my supervisor, he said finally. and probably file about 17 different forms with the Human Galactic Relations Office. But, yeah, I think I'd like that. The Empress's skin shifted to bright gold, a color Marcus had never seen before but which his translator identified as joy mixed with anticipation. Excellent. I believe this arrangement will benefit both our peoples. As the Times, Starweaver Times, limped toward the nearest repair station, escorted by a fleet of Council investigation ships, Marcus found himself thinking about the future. Humans had always been good at fixing things, machines, problems, situations that seemed hopeless. Maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed. After all, sometimes the best solution was the simplest one. And sometimes all it took was someone willing to get their hands dirty and think outside the box. Even if that box happened to be a quantum-powered starship belonging to an alien empress, the universe, Marcus reflected, was about to get a lot more interesting.